It's finally here. Uh, Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk. Um, to be honest, I didn't think it was ever gonna happen. I didn't think that Tyson Fury was actually gonna go through with it after what happened, against Francis Ngannou. Um, I thought it was embarrassing, of course, and not only for Tyson, but of course for the boxing community and the people who, like myself, believe boxing to be a respectable sport and a much more harder sport than MMA. Of course, there's a lot of things that go into what happened, right? But first of all, this isn't common, and I don't think it or maybe it will. Who knows? Um, but I don't think it'll repeat itself anytime soon. Um, what happened to between Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou is one of these rare occurrences where an MMA fighter faces a boxer and he actually wins. And you got to understand, this is not something that happens often. Now, does this mean that boxing is at a low level? It is. It does mean that in a little bit, in a way, but it doesn't mean that this is going to happen that much. I think, because you got to understand, like, these kind of fights has happened before, and you got YouTubers beating MMA fighters. Okay, so in boxing, so that means that the level, in my opinion, the level of boxing, the level of striking in MMA isn't as good as boxing is. Um, it's just the striking in boxing is way better and way more advanced. And at the end of the day, even though some people may believe that Tyson Fury lost against Francis Ngannou, um, on paper, he did. Tyson Fury did win the fight, but in the eyes of the people, which is what actually counts. Francis Ngannou, won that fight. Um, but then you got to look at what did he do, with that. What did he do um, with that win? Not much, because as soon as you do something like that to the world heavyweight champion, you drop him. You should immediately try to get more fights, you know. And getting back to this um, fight between Tyson and Alexander Usyk that's about to happen. It's for all the belts. It's for all the marvels. Um, they're going to be fighting for undisputed, right? So whoever wins this fight, you know, um, will take home all the belts and will be the first undisputed champion since I believe the last one was Lennox Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so which is weird because I thought maybe um, what's his name? I forgot his name. Vladimir Klitschko. Um, but I used to think that he was undisputed, but I guess not. So yeah, whoever wins this fight is gonna be the first undisputed champion since the 90s. I forgot where exactly. Lennox Lewis, I know he was in the 90s because he fought Tyson. So, so this is a very important fight. And after the fight with Francis Ngannou, I didn't think that Tyson was going to take the fight. And the reason for that is because before that, he was already not taking fights. After he beat Wilder. And there was a bit of me that thought that maybe the whole, Gypsy King thing was an illusion. It was all a farce, and that he was just being protected by his promoters or whoever was handling him. And more it started to seem like he wasn't, especially when he took the gimmicky fight against Francis Ngannou, which, by the way, that's what it was. It was a gimmick fight. Um, but he already had fights that people wanted to see him against. They wanted to see him against Anthony Joshua. They wanted to see him against Usyk for undisputed. Those are the fights that the people wanted. Even against Ruiz, Andy Ruiz, that would have been a good fight as well. But for some reason, he went and fought somebody who's never fought before, somebody who nobody asked him to fight. He went and fought him, and he damn near lost the fight. Okay, which is embarrassing to say the least. So after that happened, that was like the seal for me, the final nail on the coffin for Tyson Fury, in my opinion. I thought, that's it. We're not gonna get any more of these fights. And he's not, definitely not what he said he was. And I know some people are gonna say, "Oh, that's too harsh." He still won the fight. You shouldn't, jump off the bandwagon. Which, by the way, I was never on the Tyson Fury bandwagon. I just thought that he was good enough for the heavyweights that we have to date. In this era of boxing. But at the same time, this era of boxing is very low level. It's very not up to par to even the 90s. We go to the 90s. Francis Ngannou could not have touched or could not have done what he did to Tyson Fury, to the real Tyson, to Mike Tyson. He could not have done what he did to Tyson, to Ali, to Foreman, to Joe Frazier, all of these guys, all of these heavyweights of the past, they were just too good to even imagine Francis Ngannou doing this. So that's how I know that this is just, a proof that it's just another thing that proves that boxing is on the decline, as far as and it used to be like, I used to think that they were getting better, but because of the exercises and the plyometric techniques that we use now, and the different types of exercises that promote explosiveness and stuff like that. But most of those exercises, they're from the past already. They're from, I would say, as far as the 80s to early 90s. That's when a lot of the explosive exercises were made. Strength and conditioning. Of course, we perfected it now, and we have different stuff now, that help us. But you start to think, the rounds today, they go 12 rounds. They used to go 15, and even before that, they used to go 20. If we take it back even further than that, and there was no limit to rounds. The round ended when you got knocked down. So it's just a decline, in my opinion, of conditioning, a decline of sure, it's a decline of violence as well, but it just goes with like human beings. They just domesticate themselves. The more they domesticate themselves, the weaker they become physically, and things have to be modified for humans as we get more domesticated. You look at in the beginning, of boxing, try not to go as far as the Greeks. The Greeks used to put extra stuff in the gloves, so it'll hurt more. So you start to think about that, and you're like, damn. Of course, you go down the line, and it's like, You go back to England and Scotland, where they used to do bare knuckle boxing, so they went a step down from the Greeks. They just didn't put padding, right? Then you start going to the Queensberry rules, you know, and they start using gloves, right? They were still thin. You look at the gloves back then, um, they were like cooking mitts, they weren't really, or like bag mitts, like the ones you use for the bag now. And now you look at them, you have like a pillow on your hand, you know, and and a lot of people are gonna say, oh, but the skill is better now. The skill isn't better now either, because back then you had to be skillful or you would hurt your hand. You had to be skillful or you would break your hand on the other person just by punching them in the face, or you had to be skillful to protect your body because most of the punches were going to the ribs, to the soft areas. Um, so it's not even that either, you know. Recuperation was better back then too, because I mean I don't want to go over all the things that I think, because a lot of people are going to um, there's a lot of people that think that we're better now, or that, oh, the size of the athletes or whatever. Like, not even that, bro. I saw videos of Jack Dempsey beating up a guy who was about 7 feet tall, I think. So, and Jack Dempsey, he's not even 6 feet tall. So, I mean, it's not up to par, dude. Like, at all. Imagine Jack Dempsey facing Francis Ngannou. And I know a lot of you guys, oh, Francis Ngannou's gonna win because he has great powers. Like, nah, bro. It's He's faced guys bigger than Ngannou, so it wouldn't even be a test for him. But moving forward, you know, um, yes, the level of boxing is declining, and for lots of reasons. One of the main reasons that I think is slowing us down, or making us more um, weaker as boxers, is the fact that we're focusing a lot more on explosiveness and athleticism, and we're kind of moving away from footwork and the art of strategy. The art of strategy is very important. Um, from when the contract is signed to you know moving forward. So the talking trash, the psychology of boxing, how to read your opponents, how to use your feet positioning, which is footwork as well, but I call it foot positioning because people think footwork is just dancing around and doing dumb shit. Um, all of that is important, and now it's like athleticism is number one, and the thing about it is, like, the reason you don't want to do that, my advice for boxers today, the reason you don't want to do that, focus on athleticism, is because no matter what, there's always going to be someone faster, there's always going to be someone stronger, and there's always going to be someone that lasts longer than you. So you could only do so much of that. You can only run so many miles, you can only jump so much rope, and you could only do so much, right? And even then, there's always going to be someone stronger than you, right? So then I wouldn't focus on that too much. Yes, I'll do, the routines or whatever, do whatever coach says. But at the end of the day, the thing you have to understand is that you have to be slicker than your opponent. You have to be trickier than your opponent, and you have to outthink your opponent. Uh, Out strategize rather than outthink. Outthink, it's a weird word to use when it comes to fighting because you're not supposed to be really thinking. Um, but out strategize your opponents. Outwit your opponents, and focus on form. Focus on form. Focus on technique within strategy, not technique for the sake of technique, or or form for the sake of form, but form for the sake of strategy. Um, so it's like I said in other videos, right? It's not just knowing when to do it; it's knowing when not to do it. And you got to know why you're doing certain things. Why are you keeping your hands up? So you don't get hit. So when don't I have my hands up? When I'm at a range, maybe. When I'm in a safe zone, when I'm away from the opponent. Um, it's stuff like that. That's like an example, right? But then stuff like that is going to improve you. And having said that, to the conference, between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury was very entertaining in my opinion. Tyson Fury looks a little bit thinner in the interview. In this picture, he doesn't look as thin, but in the interview, you can go look at it on YouTube right now, or the press conference actually, not interview, which is kind of like an interview as well. But he looked very relaxed, but at the same time, kind of nervous. You could tell he was kind of nervous. But he was the same old, Tyson Fury. He was talking shit. He was aggravating his opponent. Trying to get in his head. So it looks like it's gonna happen. I still, have my doubts because, like I said, I do have my doubts about Tyson Fury, especially what happened against Francis Ngannou. Makes me think maybe he's not who he says he is. Um, So, but in this press conference, you could tell that he was in his game. He was in his bag. And he was ready for the fight. You saw at the beginning there when I showed you guys the video. He looks like he's ready to go. He looks like he's ready to go. Um, so personally, I can't wait for the fight. I believe it's called the Ring of Fire. Like the Johnny Cash song. Uh, what is it? Love is a burning thing, and it makes a fiery ring. I fell into the ring of fire. Da 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 da. Pretty good song. You guys should listen to that song. Um, But yeah, it's going to be held in Saudi Arabia. I heard them mentioning Turkey something. His first name is Turkey something, um, and he is the guy who's making everything happen. And if you look here, they don't look. Um, their height doesn't look. There doesn't seem to be that much of a height difference, but who knows? Um, who do I have winning the fight? Um, I think if you look at the odds, right? You look at the boxing odds. Um, going into the fight, you got to look at what happened in the last fight. You got to look at the way they fought, how they looked. They both looked a little off. If we're gonna be honest, they both looked a little. I think Usyk came back from a suspicious low blow, right? He's coming off from a suspicious low blow that he suffered from one of his opponents. Some people say it was a low blow. Some people say it was just a regular body shot that he couldn't take. I will say this: people that come up in weight like that, they do have trouble with them body shots. Why? Because they're drained. I mean, not drained, because they're pushing it with the weight, and your core is taking most of the brunt of that um, balancing in your body, and because of that, your solar plex area, your lower abdomen area, is vulnerable to strikes, or not vulnerable to strikes. That depends on your ability to defend yourself, but it's weaker basically. And so it would make sense, that he would go down with a body shot like that. So, but at the same time, Usyk didn't look that bad. You know, I think Tyson looked worse, in my opinion, because if you look at Tyson, the knockdown happened. By the way, that noise is my chair. I have to fix my chair. But if you look at the way the knockdown happened for Tyson, um, he threw what was like a 1-2, and then he threw a hook and a two, but it was a very slap style hook, which is similar to, it's pretty much like a jab, but it's like a slap jab, which is not a bad shot. I do it a lot too. Um, which is kind of like a cat paw or something like that. Which is something in between a hook and a jab and a slap, something like that. Um, but he did it twice, and he did it from the same angle, which was a very bad angle for him to do that from. All the only thing Francis Ngannou was doing during the whole fight, which was effective for him, was to wait and counter. Right, it was just to wait and counter Tyson Fury. So in boxing and in most martial arts, there is three ways of striking, right? Three ways of attacking, and they're connected almost to strategies of war, right? They're connected. So martial arts and strategies of war for most combat is connected, right? But it's different. It's different. It's used in different contexts. But the number one and the most basic way, of course, there's nuances that make these things, all of these ways of attacking more advanced. But the first one you're taught in most martial arts is attack after you're attacked, right? So attack after you're attacked is the most basic one, and most martial arts teach it, right? And you practice in the pads, right? They shoot a jab, you move out of the way, you come back with your own attack, So or you catch the jab, your opponent's jab, and then you come back with a 1-2, then move out of the way, right? In karate, you got the same thing, right? You block something and you come back, hiya, you come back with a move. This is the most basic form of attacking your opponent, even in boxing, right? Then after that is attack as your opponent attacks, which is a little bit more advanced, right? And as your opponent is attacking, you attack as well, right? You move out of the way and attack at the same time almost, right? If he's punching, he throws a jab, you throw your jab at the same time, but in a slightly better angle. Right, so it's more like an intercepting, right? And then last but not least is attack before your opponent attacks, and this one is a little bit more advanced, but there's a lot of nuances that I don't want to go into in this one, but that would be the most advanced. But the thing about it is that Francis Ngannou managed to knock Tyson Fury with the most basic of these ways of attack, and not only that, but he did it in the least professional. How can I say, not least professional, the least fancy way, which is basically just keep your guard up, wait for him to shoot whatever he's gonna shoot, let it hit you wherever it's gonna hit you, and then come back with something. So it's not even actual defending. He just kept his guard up and then came back. And the reason I'm laughing is because that is not a good look for Tyson, dude. And I know I already talked about it, but it's just there's a difference between these two. One of them got caught with a body shot, maybe it could have been a low blow, and the other one was caught with a very basic counterpunching. Very basic counterpunching. Um, so yeah, I mean, coming into it, I would say Usyk is slightly the favorite, you know, and that should bother Tyson because the momentum is definitely on Usyk's side. Why? Because on paper, just looking at the two guys, one of these guys is a champion. Well, both of them are have belts, but um, one of them is from the weight class. So I consider him the champion of the weight class, which is Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King Fury. And the other one is not. The other one is trying to be a heavyweight, I guess you could say. One of them is taller, right? One of them has higher reach, better reach advantage. He's fast, right? He's not slow, and he should be the favorite. But since he's not, he's not. He's like it's half half, right? But it shouldn't be half half. That's what I'm trying to say. And because it shouldn't be half half, it shouldn't be 50-50. Usyk has the momentum going into the fight. Um, but we will see what happens on the day. I would say Usyk is a slight favorite just by looking at the odds and looking at the momentum of both fighters in the last fights. But you know, this is boxing and anything can happen. Having said that, guys, that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one.